Welcome back to another episode of Mr. B's Healthy Lifestyle. I'm your host, Mr. B. In this episode, I've invited Matt Dalka, and he has agreed to come and speak to us about his transformation from a standard American diet into the plant-based lifestyle. How you doing there, Matt?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a joy to have you. During your transformation that you went from a standard American diet, how was it before you went into the plant-based lifestyle?
Well, for me, I grew up actually in Wisconsin and then moved to Texas back in 2005. So those two states, they're really big on dairy, meat, cheese. And I just grew up playing football, basketball, track, other sports. And I always just believed that, hey, I have to eat this meat. I have to eat the cheese. That's what keeps me strong, helps me put on muscle, helps me be more athletic. And so I really was eating that way, and once I got out of college after playing sports, I continued to eat that way.
Yeah. During that time that you was doing that, did you notice like weight gain and like things happening to your body that it made you kind of aware of something going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Once I got out of school and wasn't so active in sports, started working, I really started to kind of yo-yo up and down in terms of weight. So I would continue to eat, the normal diet, even if I thought I was doing a pretty good job. But I would always be eating the meat, eating the cheese, eating out at restaurants, some fast food mixed in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd see my weight over time kind of go up. And then I get concerned about having put on some weight, so I would kind of cut back on what I was eating, exercise a bit more, and have a period of time where I would lose a little bit of the weight back. But over time, I just kind of go back and forth, and I noticed that I guess my max weight was going up and up and up when I was more out of shape. And then I'd also noticed that it was harder to stay, once I'd lose a little bit of weight back, it was harder to keep it off. So I'd kind of yo-yo back and forth in that way. And eventually I got to where I was really overweight. I was about a little over 250 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm 6'5", so that puts me, body mass index of basically borderline obese, just at between overweight and obese. To be in the normal range, I need to be under 211.
Yeah, yeah. During my time, whenever I made my change and everything, I noticed, situations like that. Whenever you decided that you were going to do something about it, how did that come about?
Well, for me, I got to the point where, like I said, I was kind of at the most heaviest I'd ever been, 250, little over. And I also was having trouble with high blood pressure, really ever since I left college. I would notice that whenever I'd go to the doctor or the dentist, they'd seem really concerned. My blood pressure was kind of like 140, 145 over 95 to 100 typically.
Wow.
And I just thought, hey, high blood pressure runs in my family. So I was really concerned about that. And when I learned about the plant-based diet from, she was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife.
Right.
She shared kind of more of the details about it, impacts that the plant-based diet has on, issues like world hunger, issues like animal welfare,
Right.
issues like environmental impact, as well as the health impacts. It really was just information I hadn't heard before.
Right.
And when I put all of those pieces together, it seemed like such a worthy cause and such a great answer to a lot of my fundamental beliefs that I had, and it was in line with those. So I just, I basically changed overnight.
Wow. Did she give you like an ultimatum? Either you do it or don't?
No, she never actually asked me to do it.
Right.
We had started dating. I kind of noticed just from her like Facebook account that some hints that maybe she was plant-based. And so I asked her one night on the phone, so I was wondering, like, are you plant-based and vegan? And she said, yeah, I am. I've been dreading having this conversation with you. I think she had some bad
right.
bad experiences with other, men in the past. But once I, heard about it from her, and I said, hey, that sounds really interesting. I tell you what, if you become a Green Bay Packers fan, I'll give the plant-based diet a try. And
Hey,
so,
that's a trade-off right there.
yes, it is.
Well, that's good. So she was kind of like the open door to the plant-based lifestyle that you didn't know that you was going to jump into then, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's great. After you did a little bit of change, was it a little bit of change at a time, or did you hang on to a few things, or was it cold turkey?
Well, for me, it was pretty much cold turkey. I went, like I said, pretty much overnight. Made the decision, and I would say the way I've implemented plant-based eating has kind of changed and refined over a year and a half that I've been doing it now.
Right.
But pretty much, once I turned away from the animal products and learned what I learned, it was just an overnight thing for me.
Well, cool. I mean, that's great. So you just went, that's it. I'm done,
Right.
and decided no more meat, no more dairy, and it just basically took that big step.
Yep.
How about, did you have any of those little cravings that would hit you from time to time?
Yeah, I'd say initially, it was something that, a lot of the foods I was eating were very addictive. Um, cheese is an extremely addictive thing, so
Right.
that was something that you kind of craved a little bit
Hmm.
as time went on. But those cravings, they kind of passed probably within a matter of weeks. I used to wear cheese on my head when I'd watch the Packer games. I still do, but I'm pretty sure that's vegan cheese, so it's okay.
Right, right. It's not made from a real cow.
Right.
It's probably a plastic cow cheese, right? Well, after you made that leap and you started eating, the plant-based diet, did you notice like real fast, or did it take a little period of time before you started noticing the changes in your body and the weight loss? Of course, the weight loss.
Yeah, I mean, the weight loss was the main thing I noticed right away. Like I said, I was about 250, a little over 250, and I lost 55 to 60 pounds in 5 months. So it was pretty steady, just, you know, 10, 15 pounds a month coming off. And I certainly wasn't starving myself. I was eating till I was full. I was eating a lot of food, a lot of potatoes. I love potatoes.
Right.
Beans, rice, your whole grains, your lentils, other legumes, just a ton of vegetables, ton of fruit. And so the weight loss was the main thing I noticed right away.
Uh-huh.
And then a little while after I'd been doing it, probably 6 months in, I went in for an annual checkup at the doctor. And that's when I noticed drastic improvements in blood pressure, drastic improvements in cholesterol. So those were some of the key things that I noticed.
Wow. Yeah, and it took just a little bit of time, and all of a sudden, bam, you're healthy again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was kind of opposed to going to the doctor when I was really out of shape.
Right.
So when I was at that 250, I never had a checkup to see just how bad it had gotten. Certainly had the high blood pressure numbers, but I didn't have a real high mark on the cholesterol.
Right.
I'm guessing it was probably north of 200. That's kind of be in line with my family history, and my expectation there. But, after about 6 months in to the plant-based diet, when I finally checked it and went to the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
my blood pressure is back in normal range. It's like 118 over 66.
Wow. There you go.
Total cholesterol is like 110.
Good.
And LDL is, 65 to 70. I think it was 66 last time I checked. So,
Right. Right.
those were pretty dramatic improvements. I always thought that having the family history that I have, with basically all of my grandparents having passed away from heart disease, heart attacks running through my family line, uncles passed away in their early to mid 60s. My dad's father passed away early to mid 60s of heart attacks. I just kind of always thought I'd always have high blood pressure, and I'd probably be knocked out by a heart attack at some point.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it's just not true. I've seen that with the diet and I've heard it said that the diet can turn your genes on and
Mm-hmm.
off, and certainly I'm an example of that. Where with the cholesterol that I have and the blood pressure I have, there's basically no scientific way I'll ever have a heart attack.
So whenever you go to the doctor now, you go in smiling, knowing something's going to be good this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And,
they always ask me, so wow, are you like a big runner or something? And I'm like, no, it's diet.
yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is because I noticed, like just like you, my blood pressure whenever I had my little incident was like 250 over 100 and something. I mean, it was like 120.
Wow.
I mean, it was up there. And I think since I've checked my blood pressure here lately, I'm running right at about 110 over 50 and, stay in those ranges. I even woke up one morning and it was like 96 over 65.
I know.
And I was like, whoa, that's the lowest I've ever seen it.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And that
I mean, it
was
really is.
just all of this plant-based dieting, and people don't think that they can fix themselves. And they hear people go, well, you just got to eat right, but they think eating right is, okay, now I got to eat chicken, I got to eat fish, and I got to eat all the little vegetables, I got to eat salads. That's the big misconception right there. They think their whole life is going to be a salad now.
Right.
And I've experimented with coleslaw and made cabbage salads and stuff like that, out of the recipes that I find. And, it's great. I love it. I'd rather sit down there and eat a bowl of that than I would a lettuce salad.
Oh, absolutely. And I find that for me, the food I eat now is so much better. I mean, it's just more flavorful. It's more fulfilling. I don't feel so horrible after I eat it. I have more energy. I look forward to eating. And, my wife is amazing in terms of the meals that we have for dinner. We get creative. We come up with a lot of different types of food I normally wasn't eating. I was just sticking to the same old in the old way of eating where, I'd have a steak and some vegetables or a chicken breast and some vegetables, and those were the times I was eating healthy or what I thought was healthy.
Right.
But it was kind of boring. I mean, to me, the flavor all comes from the spices you use and the combination of the vegetables and the beans and the quinoa or other grains. And I mean,
Right.
it's just so much more, I would say, tasty now. Indian food, Thai food, these types of flavors that I really never ate very much beforehand.
Yeah, and whenever you've changed, your taste changes with it. So like you said, the spices is what makes it now. My last little episode, I did the meat substitutes to kind of help everybody, kind of understand there is something in place of the meats. If you wanted to, take away some of it or all of it, So, I add those things, and my number one thing in there is spice. You can make it taste the way you want it to taste.
Yes.
Tofu has no taste to it, but I tell you what, I can make it taste like scrambled eggs, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, the meats, and eggs, I mean, primarily the meats like chicken, steak, those things really don't have much taste in and of themselves either. It's all about the marinades. It's all about the salt and pepper or, whatever somebody is putting on the meat.
You're exactly
that's
right.
giving it the flavor. So, getting rid of it, I haven't found that I've missed, any of the flavors at all.
Right, right. It's, I guess the hardest part of mine was getting used to, that tough texture. But now that I don't have to fight to eat it,
Yeah.
because you get a steak, man, and I'd be fighting with that thing trying to, get it cut and get it chewed. And it was like, well, I got it down, and I don't do that anymore. I don't hurt myself trying to chew up a steak.
Yeah, it's true.
But after you did all of this and you found the changes and you're healthier and you live better, do you look back at that and go, why didn't I do this, back then?
Oh, I look at it, I think that a lot. I look back at the years I used to eat that way and how I used to feel and just, you feel bad about yourself because you're overweight, you're sluggish. And I just, I constantly think, why didn't I have this information before?
Right.
Even when I was in my college days and athletic performance, I've noticed now when you do the diet right, you know, athletic performance, recovery times, how I can put on lean muscle, like all of those things are improved. And I constantly wish, hey, I wish I had known this back in college because, man, I probably would have been a lot better at sports than I ended up being.
Yeah, you would have had the right fuel to get, you know, up that track or down that field or whatever you needed, you
Right.
know. And I look at that too myself. I begin to think, you know, how hard did I work, you know, during my time in high school and where it got me. And of course, my last name, you know, it's a curse just because of Jim Plunkett for the Oakland Raiders back in '78, you know, and going to school with that last name. They're like, all right, you're going to do it. You know, this is it, Plunkett. We're going to make you a quarterback yet. And I was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I would have had the right nutrition, because when I was growing up, it was macaroni and cheese, it was French fries, it was hamburgers, hot dogs, you know. As a kid, they didn't really feed us, you know, nutrition. It was like feed you, get you out of the way, you know. Here, eat, shut up, go play.
Yep. Yep.
You know, whenever you were growing up, you know, what was the staple foods that you had behind you?
Our I do say that I was pretty lucky in that my dad was he's a big gardener, so we always had a huge garden.
Oh,
So
good.
we had a lot of fresh vegetables from the garden. When they were in season, and then he would can them and freeze them, and we'd have them throughout the year. But those vegetables were always kind of the side item. We were certainly a meat and potatoes type of family, so meat would always be a big part of what we ate.
Right.
Um, and then, as you kind of get older and get into high school and, eat for yourself, I was always eating a little bit more of the fast food, your Subways and your Taco Bell and that sort of stuff started to creep in. But yeah, we were always really meat focused, and dairy. Always tried to drink a bunch of milk every day, and of course, being from Wisconsin, cheese. We would put
Yeah, of
cheese on
course, the
everything
cheese.
and,
Yeah.
and eat cheese plain, cheese curds, all those
Oh,
sorts of
my.
things. And I think a lot of the vegetables I was eating as a kid were really from the garden. There's some protective benefits to those, so it was kind
Hmm.
of counteracting the negative impacts of the animal products to some degree. But yeah, I do wish I knew what I knew, or I knew then what I know now.
Right, right. And I've always said that too. Is I wish I, you know, had this knowledge back then because, you know, life would have probably been a lot better, and I probably wouldn't have made a lot less doctor, you know, visits. And we made a lot of doctor visits as I was growing up, because as kids, you know, we carried a lot of bacteria, you
Hmm.
know, playing outside and being with our friends and stuff, and we just bounce a cold around like it was, you know, a frisbee between us,
Right.
you know. And now it's like I'm rarely ever sick. You know, I've went almost 2 years now without a cold,
Wow.
and if I feel something coming on, it doesn't last more than a day or so,
Yep.
you know, and it's gone. I mean, you're experiencing that, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the same thing for me. I like this last flu season was a great example. Multiple people in my office, a few doors down from me, had the flu. Everybody said, "Oh, it's a horrible year for the flu." It seemed like everybody had it. I never got it. And I'm not a big germaphobe, try to clean everything. I just kind of let it be, and I'm around people. I don't try to restrict myself. And, I've noticed if I'm eating the way I eat now, very
Right.
little chance of getting sick. I mean, obviously sleep's a big part of it, and I can still wear myself out if I'm really stressed out, not sleeping enough. I can put myself at risk. But like you said, very rare. and if something does come on, it's minor and it's
Right.
gone in a day or two.
Right. Now that you've actually changed and you feel how the sickness is not hitting you as much and everything, do you feel confident in your health as far as like futuristic and like in the future?
Yeah, I just, like I said before, with the cholesterol numbers, blood pressure, kind of that concern about heart disease, it's just completely gone. It's off the table. I mean, I you look at studies and they basically say if your total cholesterol is under 150,
Right.
you will not have a heart attack. And so, that's that not being a part of my, my future is gives me a lot of hope. I think that and then when you learn about the anti-cancer effects, you learn about obviously diabetes is kind of off the table, and type 2 diabetes. So there's none of those real chronic diseases that I'm worried about. So, I expect to not only have a nice long life, but also have a really fulfilling life, where I'm
Right.
not just hanging on and miserable, but I'm vital, I'm vibrant, I'm having a lot of fun and a lot of energy and able to move around and do things I want to do even into the later part of my life.
Right. Well, whenever you're healthy, you can have a lot more fun. I mean, that's, basically it. Because you can't have fun if you're feeling miserable,
That's right.
you know. So I tell you what we're going to do. Whenever I turn 70, I'm going to call you up and go, hey, Matt, I'm 70, you know. And
Awesome.
then if I'm still around whenever you reach 70, you call me up and say, hey, Mr. B, I'm still here.
Yep. No, sounds good. I think we've got hopefully a lot longer than 70.
Well,
My wife.
well, it's a starting point. Then whenever we reach 70 and everything, we're going to kick it up 10 years.
Okay.
And it's 80, and then it's 90. So that way we'll be able to go, hey, look at us. We fixed it.
That's right.
And we live longer and better. And, of course, we won't have to worry about all of that, other stuff that, comes with aging whenever you eat a standard American diet. The Parkinson's, the dementia, all of that stuff. They say that it cuts it down. I mean, to a bare minimal. If you eat right and take better care of yourself, it becomes you're less likely to get it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, we're going to look at each other, whenever we reach that point. And how old are you now?
Well, I'm 35 right now.
35. You got a
Yep.
lot longer. I'll be gone. I'll hit 100 before you will, for sure. Because I'm 52.
Okay.
So whenever we look at each other later on down the road and everything, we'll be able to say, "Hey, look at here, I made it." And then you'll have to make the bet with somebody else later on. Then.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for sitting down and talking with us about your change into the plant-based lifestyle. Really enjoyed it, and I hope from what you tell us and what you've experienced, and maybe somebody will hear that and go, "Hey, I can do that too," or "I'm gonna try that." If he can make it that far, then I'm gonna try to make that far too. And that's kind of what my podcast's purpose really is to say, hey, you can do it, and as all you got to do is just make up your mind. You can go cold turkey, or you can start at like 80%, 90%, 95%, and go 100%. I've known people to do that too.
Yep.
Of course, you didn't have a choice. You married a woman that was already doing it, and you were like, well, what the heck? I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But, yeah, and thank you so much for, sharing that with us. And, of course, we always want to look at what we're doing, with our lives and how, if we're happy about, our lifestyle and how we feel. And, of course, you have a choice. You always have a choice in health. And usually it's best to follow it if, you want to make that, change in your life. Well, once again, I want to thank Matt for joining us and everything. Thank you so much, Matt. And, do you have anything you'd like to tell our listeners that, might help them?
Well, I think for me, the main thing is I'm just really grateful I found out when I did. The men in my family, they typically haven't survived heart attacks.
Oh,
So it's never really too late, to make a change. Our bodies are really resilient, and so your story's always inspired me that you got to that point, went through a really horrible, scary time, but that was the impetus to make the change, and it's unfortunate you had to go through that, but for where you are now, it was worth it,
yeah.
and I think that my hope is that other people will hear my story and kind of think, hey, I should make this change before it is too late. And you don't have to be at rock bottom before you make a change. And you're just not giving up anything. That's what I've found. There's all these benefits, and you're not giving up a single thing. And so it's more of a question of why shouldn't I do it as opposed to why should I. And yeah, I just appreciate you letting me share my story. If one person can be better off from hearing it, then it's that just makes my heart really happy. And so glad to see you doing what you're doing, and glad to be a part of it.
Hey, well, I'm glad to make you part of it, and thank you so much again.
And if you would like to join one of the seminars that Dr. Juan is hosting, you can find out more information about times and dates and where the seminars are being held at Dr. Douglas Juan, MD, or Spine Dr. Juan, all one word, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also find YouTube videos that Dr. Juan has made that are informative and from his previous seminars that he has had. And of course, we don't want to forget my friends over at pH Aloe. And pH Aloe is an easy-to-use dietary supplement featuring an array of essential minerals and electrolytes designed to support the body's ability to maintain a healthy pH. And until next time, always remember, make health your life. Be wise, be healthy. It's the best choice.